welcome to Gab and Jam, episode 226.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
All right, so today I figured we would get our best legal musical mind that I know on the topic of basic legal documents for the D.I.Y rockstar. This one was inspired by You Are the Brand episode. I'll put the link below. It's a podcast. And they go into a lot of great detail. And I've done a blog post that encapsulates all their points. But I just figured that we're a business. You know, I know you don't want to think of yourself as a business, but if you're a DIY rock star, you're running a business.
Right.
And there are things that you can do to make sure that things run more smoothly.
Yes.
And so considering some of those contracts might be one. And so I'll just briefly tell you the three types of documents that they were talking about in that episode, and then I'll let you pick it up from there.
Okay.
So they talked about client contracts, so things like if you are performing live or if you're hosting an event, how you might create contracts so that people who are coming know what to expect, or the people you're performing for would know what to expect. But they have a list of others on there for client contracts. Right. And if you're if you're teaching lessons, and things like that.
Yeah, explain it a little bit more. So when you're saying client contracts, you're talking about that you are a person who's providing a service to someone.
You could be doing music lessons. You could be producing something for them.
Right.
You could be playing on a track.
Whatever it might be, it's you as providing a service, and so you may want to understand. So what are you expected to do, and then what are you going to receive in return for what you did?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And then the second type of contract they say that you need to be concerned with is collaborative contracts. So that's partnerships, affiliate relationships, sponsorships. So those are the types of things that definitely DIY rock stars, we collaborate a lot with each other, or even talking about the possibility of collaborating. Yeah. They talked about that, about the non-disclosure agreements, just in case you share your brilliant idea that no one else knows about, and then you end up not working with this person, or you work with this person and then they go and execute the idea, and you say, well, geez, I was telling them because I thought we were gonna do something together and didn't end up working out, but then they took my idea. So they were saying just make sure you have something like that in place before you talk.
Yeah, but that's kind of different too, because you need to define what each other own when you start.
Okay.
So that's the other part. So if you have this idea that's percolating and you're just sharing it with somebody, you know, at what point what aspect of that is yours? Okay, and what aspect belongs to somebody else?
Okay, or is in the ethos and they just decided to execute and act on it.
So sometimes that's you coming in saying, "This is what I have." You know, so and you know, if you're starting a relationship and you have this idea, then you need to, you probably would need to have, as they call it, non-disclosure agreement or NDA. That's what people say a lot of times. But you may need to have that. But then, you know, that's one thing. But then you need to define what it is. What's the idea?
Okay.
What is that? So that needs to be defined that this is mine. I'm bringing this.
I got you. So not just the thing, don't say anything about the things we talk about, but this is the idea that I'm going to share with you.
So this is the thing this thing that I'm defining, this is the thing I want you talking about.
Okay. All right.
So that I know that, you know, if you go out and you're talking about this, this is what we defined as the universe of stuff that you're not supposed to talk about.
Okay.
These are all of the, because you don't, the thing that you never want to do is to argue about the sum and substance of what the contract is.
Okay.
So that's, you know, again, this is why, you know, people, anytime you agree, like we come together, I agree that I'm going to do A, and you say you're going to give me Y for doing A, right? We've created a contract. Now, whether we've written that down or not, that's a whole different issue. So we've created a contract. So I go in, I do A, and then All right, and then you don't give me why. At least I don't feel. You give me what you think is why. I don't think what you gave me constitutes why. Now all of a sudden we haven't written it down.
Right.
So that means that we got to argue about what why is.
Oh, got you.
You see, so now you go in, you got to go into court. You got to say, okay, I think why is this. You think why is that, and what was the meeting of the mind? So the contract or what you write down defines what A is.
Okay.
Because it could be the other thing, right? It could be I did A, you gave me Y, and you don't feel like I did A.
Right.
You know, so we need to define what A is.
Right.
And then we need to define what Y is. And then we kind of close this off by saying that the definition of what we're doing is what's in this contract.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Nothing outside.
Okay.
You know, you can't come in and say, okay, we want to define this and all that this kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, you don't want to have to define the terms by some conversation that you had after the contract was made.
Wow.
You want the contract to be limited to what is written on a piece of paper.
Okay.
So both parties should be satisfied with what's written there, so that then if a court is looking at it, it can say, well, you defined A as this, you did A, you defined Y as this is what you were supposed to give.
Okay.
That makes it simple.
That makes it simple. I love it. And then the third thing they talked about in their podcast was website legalities, and which are the rules of agreement if someone is interacting with you through your website or on some other online platform. You know, ideally you should have your terms and conditions on your website, and then privacy policy is required by law. And usually, if you're using a customer service platform like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, they make you do it. You don't realize it.
So explain what you mean by privacy policy.
Privacy policy says that if you give me whatever the information is, your email address, your name, any of that I will use it in whatever way I have put forth in that policy, which I can use it any way I want to, but you just have to agree. Right.
So understand that these are like anti-spamming laws, right? So that's when we talk about the privacy policy, you're talking about like anti-spamming laws.
And usually, if you're using something like MailChimp, they'll make you define that, and then the people have to opt in. Yeah. You know, your person. So that means you can't just go and send them a whole bunch of emails just because they filled out a form, but they have to say that I agreed to this. Yeah. And so these are the final things to keep in mind. Again, if you want more on this, go to the blog post. It has a lot more. But according to the podcast, the reason why this is important is most businesses are just one lawsuit away from being put out of business. And so things like contracts are an easy thing that you can kind of put in place or have at the ready before you even get started. If you know you're doing a lot of sales or you're performing, then it makes sense. If you're performing at bars regularly, then you definitely want to have some type of contract that you have between you and whoever. Right.
Yeah, and a lot of people, again, a lot of people make it sound like, well, as soon as you want to put something to write, it's like, well, you don't trust me or you don't this. But really, the whole reason why you're putting it in writing is that it just clearly defines what the expectations are.
And to me, that's not too much to ask.
That it really isn't. And so if people are reluctant to do that or feel like, that's, you really kind of, this should just be a handshake deal. We should be able to, you shouldn't have a problem.
Friends.
Right, but you shouldn't necessarily have a problem with just putting it on a piece of paper and say, okay, you agree to this, we agree to that, and we're good. Yeah. And that shouldn't be a problem one way or the other. Yeah. And so if you're a group and you find yourself gigging a lot, maybe it might be a good idea, and there might be some good template contracts out there.
Yeah, so they recommend LegalZoom. Again, this is a non-sponsored post, so but I know that there are specifically some entertainment based like legal online contract places you can go. So we'll research that and put that in the blog post. Some places you can go. But again, we're not sponsored by them.
Not sponsoring it, nor am I saying that recommending it. All I'm trying to say is because each situation has its own
series
of facts or whatever else. So you may need to tweak whatever, and by all means, to the extent you're doing this on a regular basis, you should really think about consulting with an attorney. Who can take a look at what you're doing.
Your individual. Yeah, because they made an analogy. They said because the guy was saying, well, why can't you just Google somebody else's terms and conditions or whatever contract and then use that? And she said it's like putting an 11-year-old on Shaquille O'Neal's business suit. Like there's going to need to be some alterations. It's probably not going to fit well. It's probably not going to represent that the unique personality of that 11-year-old. So
because you really need to go by and tweak it to make it fit the situation that you're in and the situation that you find yourself in on a regular. And that's whether and the collaboration thing I think is really the one that's trickier, because that's at what point as a producer do you stop being a producer and become almost like a songwriter or whatever else, or even if you're a musician, if you come in on a song, like we just came in with Forget Me Nots, right? So let's just say Patrice Rushen comes in with chords and she's just singing that melody, and then I think it was Freddie Washington that played bass on that. He comes through with that bass part. I mean, that song
is known by the bass part.
Right. If she could play those chords, you wouldn't know what she was playing.
No.
But as soon as you hear that bass part, you're like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
So, he's more than he's more than just a bass player.
A session player.
Right, just playing a part. I mean, that's completely different. So I mean, you really want to be in that situation where sometimes you may need to tweak some of this stuff, kind of based on the song, and you may need to say, okay, I need to get a songwriting credit. So maybe in thinking about that, when you start structuring your contract, especially if you're doing this kind of stuff regularly, maybe you want to have that option. That to the extent, to the extent that, there's a feeling that, you've kind of went beyond that, and you're adding substantial parts to a song that the parties will negotiate, a royalty rate or a songwriting credit on the song. That's just happened. But you want it not to be where maybe both parties have to agree, but where you get to raise it. That to the extent that you feel that way, that it's that way that you get to renegotiate that. So you kind of write that into, your whatever agreement you have, and maybe you do that as a producer or whatever else, that, when it crosses that line, that you get to raise it, and that now there has to be some type of negotiation that has to take place. I mean, these are types of things you kind of need to start thinking about. And there's probably stuff out there already. Again, a lot of times you don't necessarily want to have to reinvent the wheel. But you do want to understand and appreciate the fact that your situation might be very unique. And you have to be willing to take that in, or even, kind of the unique terms that you may want in these types of agreements. So that's why I say that, hey, if you can consult with an attorney, try to do it. I mean, if you need to go through something like LegalZoom, whatever else, fine. If you need to just use somebody else's template, fine. But at least try to craft the words in a way where you kind of get the things that you want. And anytime that if you got something in writing and you think it means one thing and the other person thinks it means something else, you need to rewrite it. You need to always make sure that what is written, both parties agree that's what it means. That you don't never want to have, well, I think he means, or if he says, oh yeah, but okay, we need to, well, no, if you guys, if you don't know, then get it clear to make it reflect that,
And then one last thing that they said that is super important is be wary of offering guarantees for anything. Because, again, your definition of meeting whether it's money back, like, hey, or money back guarantee, or it'll make you, I'm giving you lessons that'll make you write a #1 hit song or whatever. Just, you don't want to do that because that is opening the floodgates for trouble.
That's true.
So be wary of that.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think? What about you? What legal documents do you need as you engage with others and as you grow your business? It's something to think about. Put it in the comments below if you have a particular situation that you'd like to tell us about regarding legal documents. We'd love to hear about it. And what else?
Sugarfish is available anywhere where you need to stream, or not need to stream, but anywhere where you do stream. You can get it from CD Baby if you want the CD. You can get it from Bandcamp if you want the CD. You can get it from us.
That's right. Oh, ringtones. We have ringtones for every song on Sugarfish. You want a unique ringtone. You don't want to think that your phone is ringing when you hear that generic. You want to know it's yours. So if you get a Sugarfish ringtone, that will assure you're going to be the one that has the good and funky ringtones.
Right.
All right. If you dig the vibe and you want to be a part of the tribe, be sure to
subscribe.
We're wishing you love, peace, and
chicken grease.